Hello and welcome to the Practice Marketing Podcast, highlighting successful strategies from North America's fastest growing clinics and experts so you can learn from their wins and power your practice growth. Hi, I'm your host, Neil Trickett, CEO of Practice Promotions, and today's focus, we're going to talk about real AI tools for real PT clinics. And we have a great guest here. It's Rob Helton. He's the Senior Vice President of Product at WebPT, where he leads product strategy. And with nearly 20 years in healthcare and a doctorate in physical therapy, he brings real clinical insight to product strategy. And before WebPT, he held leadership roles at Cerner and worked in clinical IT, so he knows the tech from both sides. And Rob's also big on culture. So today he's going to share practical ways to use AI for your physical therapy clinic and how we can move our clinics ahead in this new fast-paced, changing AI world. So Rob, welcome to the podcast.
Neil, thank you for having me on. It's wonderful to be here.
Awesome. All right, so let's chat on this. We're bombarded in the news all day long with cool new innovations with AI. We're learning that we're going to get taken over by robots in the near future. But what are the most practical day-to-day uses of AI that you see clinics benefiting from right now?
Absolutely. Well, I'll start with, I would be remiss if I didn't mention documentation efficiency and ambient AI and ambient scribes. The whole speech to text dictation adventure started in the late 90s with Dragon. If anybody remembers Dragon, you push a little button, you set a couple words, and hopefully it appeared in your EMR. Now it's this cool, bring in your cell phone or microphone, put it between your patient and yourself. Just do your normal evaluation at the end of it. It fills out most of, not all of your note for you. I can't stress enough how much of a game changer we've seen this be. At WebPT, we do get to see the data of like how long it takes to fill out documentation. We have several partners in the space, and being able to see a therapist who we can traditionally say would take between 30 to 45 minutes, fill out an evaluation, condense that down to about 3 minutes is pretty earth-shattering. It is a huge game changer. Yeah. And of course, it's going to depend on the patient segment that you're treating, how you treat, how many patients you treat at once. Not everybody has the same output. And then, for daily notes, being able to see somebody go from 8 minutes, 10 minutes to a daily note to it taking about 1 minute is pretty incredible.
That is awesome. I mean, I come from the old school. So I graduated in 98 and it was paper charts. So filling out that evaluation all handwritten and you'd be sat there for, an hour or two after work trying to get your documentation done. And we all know how worse documentation has gotten over the decades, and authorizations and all these headaches that we have to jump through and all these hoops. So to have a software, a solution that helps us to make that so much more efficient that we can do what we all want to do, which is to take care of our patients, right? And we just want to have time to do what we like to do. We don't like to do the documentation stuff. We don't like to do the stuff that we have to do for insurance.
That's
so
right.
It's great that you guys are really, working on that part of it and what we've been able to accomplish in these last, 5 years or so, right?
When I started practice, I was on pencil and paper. And the way that I got into healthcare IT is we were implementing the Cerner Millennium system at the hospital system that I worked at. And I was pulled in to help make the documentation more efficient. And that led to doing this full time, to working at Cerner, to building documentation systems, to being at WebPT. And I finally feel like we've advanced to a place in the industry to where the whole reason I got into this may actually come to pass in the next couple of years. So it's super exciting.
That's right? Really exciting.
Because to your point. Now, beyond the efficiency, the other call out I would have, this is super practical. A lot of people understand that there's efficiency from the ambient/AI scribes. They don't think of it as a chokehold or a way to help create quality in the notes that are generated. And so when we think about, you're interacting with this AI scribe, and that has these large language models, LLMs behind it. If you're doing your plan of care, it can actually nudge you and say, hey, I see that you said these 3 things. Have you considered doing these other 2 things that are on guideline or part of a plan of care or items? Also making sure that as you have, I'm going to think of new graduates and when I started, sometimes things are forgotten in the note. They get said during the evaluation because what I hear versus what I write down, there's a delay. Being able to capture that and get it into the note helps with everything from audits, reviews, medical necessity, as well as, just good old patient care, right? So they're more complete notes. I think that it's a wonderful innovation.
Absolutely. And so, I mean, I haven't practiced in a while, so I'm kind of curious now as you do, you were just mentioning, so as I would do an evaluation on a patient, it's basically recording me and summarizing and
Right.
doing its AI thing off of that, right?
Yeah. Well, it's also and like I told you a little bit earlier, Neil, I can nerd out on this stuff all day. I love this category. Um, it's also, I would write down on my little piece of paper when I was evaluating somebody, and I would say, STS 2 times 10 with pain left side. And then later I'd look at it and I would think, when I wrote that down, what was I thinking? Like, what was in my head? So many of these scribes have what I'd refer to as scratch note functionality. So you just type in a couple notes, and then, it learns what you write down and it can expand that into larger text blocks for you. Patient with radicular symptoms, etc., stand times 10, left-sided pain.
Mhm.
Uh, and so it's not just about it capturing, it's also about helping expand in the efficiency of the evaluation. It's definitely not a fire and forget tool. It's very much a clinical decision support tool.
Yeah, that's really cool. And so in what you've seen,
Mhm.
is there like a new way of thinking, a certain training that we have to do with our therapists in our clinic to start to really incorporate these type of documentation efficiencies and get the most out of it?
100%. So many of the AI scribes that are geared towards outpatient therapy and interact with, say, the WebPT EMR, they're super easy to set up. I mean, you essentially go to the website, sign up, download a plugin for your browser, refresh, and off to the races. So from a time to value perspective, they're incredibly fast. From a usability perspective, depending on where you are from a technology nativeness, which is my way of saying, were you born in the 80s? I was born in the 80s. Um, you know, the easiest way that I see many therapists start interacting with it is that scratch note functionality, or using it slightly as a slightly smarter way to capture notes. And then, on the other end, teaching somebody that it's okay to ask a patient, hey, do you mind if I record the session? This is why. Being able to have it come back and then trust the fidelity of the note. And also, we have to move our clinicians from a mindset of generating text to reviewing text, right? The note's going to appear in front of you. Your job is to proofread it, understand it, and make changes, which is a different skill set and methodology than saying, hey, I'm going to sit down and write the note the way that I've written it for 20 years on this piece of paper.
Hmm. Yeah, it's almost like again coming back to old school where you used to have the like a dictate, right? Dictate it out, and then
Yep.
someone would transcribe it, and then you got to kind of review the note at the end of it, right? But it's just a way faster process um, than that. And so with the clinicians too, it's interesting that you're talking about like we just have to change our mindset that these things can automate these kind of tasks for us, and then we have to kind of shift to, hey, is this complete? Does this look good? Is there anything I want to tweak or change in this? And that does does require a different mindset to be able to do that, and better training to go that direction. I'm curious, since it is AI, we know like every clinic has its own nuances, right?
Hmm.
And ways that we say things or the ways that we do certain techniques or things that we like to incorporate. So do you find that like the AI scribes, they learn the different nuances, the languages, things that we're talking about that are within our clinics?
Some of them do and some of them don't. And the ones that don't, I think if they're going to exist, for the next 5 years, they're going to have to. So one of the most powerful aspects of AI, it's all about context, right? Does it understand me as a user? Does it understand my patient? Does it have context to why I'm treating them? Does it have context to the insurance? The really good AI scribes, they'll claim within 2 to 5 notes that they can emulate the therapist style. Some of the partners we work with, I know that's for a fact, including me. I haven't practiced in quite some time, but being able to interact with them, do demos and whatnot, it is eerie how quickly they start sounding like me, because I prefer very specific statements. I like bullet point formatting. Like, everything to me is kind of like a logical pattern. The first time that I used one of our partners, it was a paragraph. The third time I used it, it was emulating my style exactly, which was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we were talking about this a little bit before we started the podcast, which is there's so many different kinds of AI now. And so like we can't think about lumping AI into just one thing, one bucket, right? We have to realize that there's a lot of different types of AI now, and how would we use it in the clinic?
Yeah, absolutely. The way that I compartmentalize these, I think about AI in terms of efficiency. So AI that helps me as a human do my job better. So the documentation scribes that we were just talking about fall into that, right? I'm taking my notes from 2 hours to 2 minutes, and I'm going from having 15 sticky notes for insurances, reminding me what I need to document, down to somebody helping nudge me along in the conversation. The second kind I like to think about is outcome oriented. So the clinical decision support slash tools that are patient facing or help with the patient experience. Um, those are a little bit newer. I think we can talk about those. That's a pretty good conversation to jam through. And then the third is this term that everybody I think is still trying to comprehend, agentic AI. And agentic AI are literally tools that act like virtual humans that are supposed to go off and do tasks completely autonomously that you have very loose awareness and control of. So, have you seen these AI call scheduling systems yet? Are you familiar with these?
Yeah, just starting to get familiar with that.
Yeah, they're starting to appear everywhere. So,
Mhm.
for the listeners, essentially, a patient finds your phone number on your Google site or review site, they call in, and they are interacting with a person. They think it's a person, but it's actually an AI using really great voice capabilities that goes through what's their preference, what's their diagnosis, what's their insurance number, ask all those questions, does collections, get them scheduled, booked for the right therapist, and no human is in the loop.
Mhm.
Just it automates the process end to end. Um, these AIs have become super cool. I was watching a demo with one vendor. It adapts the accent and the speech patterns to meet the zip code of the patient. And
Mhm.
so, on one hand, you're like profiling, but on the other hand, you're like, hey, if it's helping me get referrals and people booked, do I actually care too much?
Yeah.
Super cool. So agentic is just starting off, and there's a lot of growth in that area.
Yeah, there's a lot of capabilities within our clinic too. If we think about some of the admin tasks that are most tedious, it's a lot of times the just the repetitive daily stuff, like reminding people that they have an appointment next day, or making sure that if someone calls
Right.
in, we can get back to them quickly and get them booked up for and schedule on on the schedule. And we have to realize like our patients are looking for that too. And what I found fascinating is in a relatively short amount of time, how in the public we've become more used to AI and automation. And it's sort of like if you don't start to have those things, it's more of an inconvenience for me as a consumer. So if I'm calling into a place and it's all old school and everything, I start to think about, well, what's the quality of care going to be like
Yes.
at this place, right? Versus if I have a very streamlined response and I have some ways I can just do things on my own without necessarily having to talk to somebody, it takes it to another level.
It absolutely matters. And there's really great evidence that suggests if a patient reaches out to self-refer, you essentially get maybe one, two phone calls to get it taken care of.
Yeah.
Right. So if it's not taken care of in the first phone call, I'm going to call the next clinic. And if they have the spot, I go there.
Yeah.
And so having these autonomous agents that can handle that, as well as
Mhm.
route them through process and do intake, um, man, as a therapist, asking those same questions, do you have any allergies? What's your medications, past history? Have you seen somebody else? Having somebody else who can do that is fantastic.
Yeah, and I would say from the marketing side, running a marketing agency, when we have clients that say, "Hey, we're just not seeing the results in the clinic," well, we're like, "Hey, well, the leads are really good," and then you look through the phone records, and it's just like, this one was missed, this one was like,
Yep.
did they ever call them back? And so there's an awful lot of lost income and potential through the front desk. I always say it's one of the most important spots. So wherever you can start to leverage automations and tools to replace some of those other tasks that could be more repetitive, or they take a certain skill set to master, it can be really key in changing things for your clinic. So obviously, there's lots of different types of AI that we have to start to think with, and I think what we started off with is probably maybe one of the simpler ones, which is getting our documentation efficiencies done,
Mhm.
and then we can go much deeper and further into our clinic automation with that.
For sure. Uh, so from a practical perspective, you know, if we wind back the clock 20 years, so we're going to talk about Dragon again, uh,
Hmm.
you really only ever got to use those tools if you were part of probably a large enterprise and they had an IT department, and that IT department spent hours getting everything set up. Uh, Now, here we are in 2025. You can go to a website, use a reputable vendor. We're going to talk a little bit later about that, but use somebody that's reputable. Get it installed on your desktop, have it integrated in minutes. So it's not, just for enterprise. You don't have to have 100 clinics before these tools make sense for you. As a matter of fact, I think this is my opinion. The smaller your clinic, the more you're going to see immediate benefit from adopting some of these AI tools. The larger ones, yes, they're still scalar efficiencies. But if you're a three provider clinic and your front desk person is going to be out for vacation because they do that, these kind of tools are a lifesaver.
Yeah, and that's what makes total sense because it's one of those things too. The bigger that you get, the more complex things become. So anytime you want to install something new, a new process, new software, whatever it may be, there's just a learning curve. It takes time, implementation.
Mhm.
So that's expected, and I would think too, like just the way that the way we are with reimbursement, obviously, the way that we're trying to transition to some hybrid models where we're bringing in cash services, things like that. The more efficient and leaner we can operate our clinics, the better we can maintain our profitability in the practice. And I think that if we look at one thing, what's the one thing that's going to drive things in the clinic, and that's looking at your revenue per employee, right? That's always one of the biggest measures that applies to profitability is revenue per employee. And we're in rehabilitation, we are very employee heavy because
Yep.
we're a service based industry, right? So we're going to have a higher revenue, less revenue per employee actually. But I think where we really chip into that is on the admin side. So how many people does it take to bill? How many does it take to collect, process
Right.
authorizations, answer the phone calls, manage the people within the organization? So the better and efficient those admin processes can become, the more we can just focus on our revenue generating side of it, which is on the therapy side of it.
Right. And so I'm going to talk about my favorite subject. I am an enthusiast for electronic benefit verification and prior authorization. Man, what a mess.
Mm-hmm.
Like between all the insurance companies, the regulations, compliance, the existence of fax machines, what just I cannot think of more disruptive mess. So when I was a therapist treating, the name of my billing slash authorization specialist was Linda. Linda would call me on Fridays, and I would get a ring, and I'd pick it up and say, "Hey, Linda, how's it going? I'm an upbeat, wonderful therapist," and she would just sigh. And she'd be like, "So look, Rob, this last week, these are the three things we missed. Here's five things. Insurance company ABC changed their prior auth, so you don't have authorization." So outside of documentation, that's the other part that I got into this industry for. We are seeing the advent of these incredible AI tools. Now, many of them are part of RCM companies that want to sell you a service, right? And I'm not trying to take away from that. But there's been implementations of a few AI-oriented prior authorization and eligibility management systems. And we're seeing denials due to, I'm going to call them front office or Rob the therapist reasons, drop from being 10%, 20%, 25% down to 0% literally overnight. Now, you could argue, well, how wonderful is that? I'm going to get that money anyway. Yeah, there's some denials I have to go through, et cetera, but I'm going to get the money. And if you're running a business where you have many individuals who have the free time to go clean that up, then you can keep doing what you're doing for now. If you're a lean operation and you're really trying to maximize your revenue, the best thing you can do is eliminate those mistakes before they happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, getting EBV taken care of, get the prior auth right, nudge the clinician with these AI tools to say, "Hey, Rob, you're on visit 10. You have to do this form. Go do that form." That seems like the best way instead of having to hire additional people in the back office to clean up messes.
Yeah, I think that's one of the, to me, it's like one of the biggest drags on the growth and the revenue of a practice is just the headache of all the admin and the touch points just to get paid,
Yeah,
right? So you provide a great service, but now you got to jump through all these hoops, make sure this documentation is correct so that you can get paid. And the
right,
more that cycle of action gets bigger because this person has to touch it and it didn't get filed right, so now we have to go back and redo it again, and like how many hours were spent, manipulating this to get the payment out of it. That's a huge waste of money, right? And
right.
a huge cost to the clinic. So I've heard that too. I've seen some of the tools and solutions for authorization where you get all the data from the online insurance company portals.
Yep.
It's scraping stuff and analyzing stuff, and then being able to spit that out and actually give it back to the front desk or even the patient and be like, hey, this is what you've got left, or this is what's authorized in your situation, and then it can get into the EMR with all the correct numbers
Right.
and data so that it can get filed correctly the first time. Because I'm seeing that too. Like with the a lot of times when things just get kicked back, it might be missing a number or some code was missed or something like that. And now we have to go through this whole cycle of action and wait
Right.
on your cash flow again, which is terrible.
Right. And you know, back in 2000s, it seemed like my organization thought that if they just had enough lunch and learns, they would turn us all into experts on insurance and billing. They really, they really persevered. And now I'd like to revisit practice and have somebody come say, Rob, just read what's on the screen and do what it says, right?
Yeah,
Just, just do what it says. And I would say that sounds great. I think this is going to change the world from a outpatient therapy perspective. There's also some regulations that are being considered that change the way prior authorization is going to work, mandating all of these companies have to have data access. Instead of us calling and there's phone numbers and screen scraping, they actually have to publish. This is crazy. They have to publish their rules in a format that EMRs and other groups can work with. So hopefully in the next 5 years, we will see the death of all of these prior auth cycles and it'll turn into something reasonable.
that would be a dream.
It would be a dream. So
It'd be
everybody
a
remember,
dream.
talk
Let's
to your
get there.
congressman, tell them that prior authorizations for
Yeah.
outpatient therapy and not just for inpatient hospitals. We need it too.
Yeah. I never forget, I had a patient one time who was a hospital administrator. And he
Mhm.
told me, and this was back in like, mid 2000s. So he told me back then that the hospital spent 15% of what they made on shuffling paperwork, to get paid.
I'm, I'm not
Crazy.
surprised by that at
It's
all.
crazy.
Right.
The top 10% of PT owners aren't just surviving, they're thriving. But what's their secret? Well, Neil Trickett's new Market to Grow book reveals how the top 10% of PT practices leverage marketing systems to simultaneously grow their new patients, attract top talent, and boost profit in their practice. You can learn from their secrets. Visit practicepromotions.net/book to claim your free copy of Market to Grow. Yes, you heard that right. We are shipping a free copy of Market to Grow to all podcast listeners who want it. Just visit practicepromotions.net/book to claim your free book. And now back to the show.
Um, so we talked about documentation and then the prior
I had one.
authorization.
I had one
Oh, go
question
ahead.
when it came back to, and this might be kind of our next conversation here, but in terms of in the clinic, like what can our audience really utilize? We're talking about documentation. We're talking
Mhm.
about how they can start to think about, different systems across the front desk to make sure that we're contacting patients quickly. And then we're talking about authorizations and getting the billing correct so that we can get our cash flow up. And then I'm curious, is there AI now that based off of what's conversed in the evaluation, what is the diagnosis where it gives suggestions in terms of billing? Because that can be a big area where we have our therapists working for us, but they're not billing the way that they could to maximize, obviously ethically, but to maximize what they're getting paid per visit for all the work that they're doing.
Absolutely. So one of our partners, whenever we're whenever a therapist is interacting with that, it does have a diagnosis assistant. That's the term I'm going to use for it. So as you're talking, it'll help you with the diagnosis. And if it has context to the payer, it can help select the payer appropriate codes because not every payer wants to see the same diagnostic code. And then when you get to the part of billing, as you're in that ambient conversation, you're doing therapeutic exercise, therapeutic activities. Of course, you're not saying I'm doing 15 times 2 therapeutic activities, right? It's sit to stand or weights, etc. It will capture that and suggest the correct codes. And since it knows roughly from the timestamps of the call, or not the call, the conversation, when it started and when it ended, I can actually help suggest the billing units.
Wow. Yeah,
Yep.
that's golden right there.
That is golden, right?
Yeah.
And yet again, everybody, I think the time to value, what gets you in the front door is saying, hey, Neil, I can take your 20 minutes that you're spending on an eval and get it down to 2 minutes. What do you think? That's instantaneous value, right?
Mhm.
We're a time-based service for the most part. And so the more units you get to bill, the better it is. But then there's that second one about quality as well as documentation content that I think a lot of people overlook initially.
And I think too, like what I see as valuable too is that we all know that it's a very tight race right now for top talent
Hmm.
in our industry, right? And with that, we're dealing with an expanding industry. We've got so much potential in this industry. Like this, the future is really bright. Um, we got to get our talent pool to catch up, right, to the demand that's out there. So I look at it as one is like all the benefits of efficiency in the clinic, right? But two, people want to work for a clinic that is easy to work in, right? That they can do their best work in. And our clinicians, they don't want to be like haggling all over the documentation, the billing, and the insurance side of it. Like they love treating patients. So how can we facilitate making their life easier, right? To treat patients, and that makes a happy therapist, and a happy therapist stays around longer.
I 100% agree with you. It is a huge differential. I remember when going from paper notes to the EMR was actually a detractor in conversations. We'd be interviewing somebody and they'd be like, "Are you using one of those EMRs?" And I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "I don't want to work here." And now I see it the flip side as if somebody came in and it's like, "No, you have to use a pencil and paper or the EMR." They'd be like, "Well, why can't I just use ambient?" And
Mm-hmm.
there's no good answer. But the
Mm-hmm.
cost of these solutions are so cheap versus the value they deliver.
Yeah, totally. Was there another AI that you were going to mention, Rob?
Well, I was going to do a pivot. I wanted to talk about marketing and
Hmm.
referrals through
Yeah.
AI. There are super awesome tools that can help you manage your socials. And yet again, there's some of the products that we either have or we partner with. Uh, but being able to, when somebody leaves you a review on your Google site, having it automatically tell you and then suggest the text to come back to where you're essentially just reviewing, approving it, being able to bring all your socials together if you have an Instagram, Facebook, or you're doing campaigns. Um, it's very simple now to use one of these AI assistants, and you go in and say, "Hey, I want to do a marketing campaign, 30 posts in 30 days on Instagram about low back pain. Here's
Hmm.
a list of the exercises," and it will generate the content, the pictures, the text. And if you, after you approve everything, it'll post them for you each day. You don't have to do any of the hard lift.
Hmm.
Like that is, I don't know how much money people are spending on marketing, but that feels like free marketing. But what I'm just talking about all comes from Canva AI.
Hmm.
We're talking about $20 a month,
Yeah. Yeah, and there's
right?
so much tools there. I mean, our team works with AI a lot, and then there's a lot of things that we need from the clinic too, like to make things right. And you can where I can see clinics really leveraging AI a lot in marketing is being able to look at, okay, what do we need to achieve this month in our clinic, right, or this quarter ahead, and use AI to come up with like an outline, basically, right, of workable ideas that they know are going to work. And then, okay, this is going to be our campaign for social. This is going to be our campaign for email marketing. And then have that, kind of built out with AI can again assist, like you're talking about, right? Assist in developing along those themes, right? Context, working out the scheduling.
Right.
And heck, I even know now, like one of the things that Facebook is really looking at is how they can basically just take your money and they'll do AI will create the imagery, the videography, whatever,
Right.
all the stuff in there, and then you just paying for the ad, and it just runs the whole ad for you. Like that's where Facebook's really trying to go.
Yeah. And, on one hand, it's scary. We're giving up control. AI means giving up control.
Hmm.
And two, it means that we are moving from a creative culture to a review culture. And I think the people who do that well and do it first are going to have a huge advantage in attracting patients, attracting referral sources.
Hmm.
Want to be able to talk about managing all the doctors or hospitals that send you people. Load all that list into an AI, tell it, a little bit about the people and have it reach out for you.
Hmm.
Phone calls, email threads, etc. Um, what a huge benefit.
And I'm always a big proponent. I would say your gold mine is in your patient list, right?
Oh yeah.
And that's where you get your referrals from. That's where you should get repeat business from. Follow ups back to the doctor, all kinds of good stuff there. So there's I've seen clinics get better at this over the years that I've been working at practice promotions, but it's still an area where clinics don't put as much effort as they should, and maybe they don't leverage enough systems as they should to keep that marketing, keep that flow going with their past patient list. So I'm curious from your end, what do you see AI really helping and facilitating in part? We talked a little bit about the social media aspect, but what other things do you see working there?
So as I said a little bit earlier, you know, AI, if you can give it context of what you want to achieve, there really is no limit to these pipelines you can build. And quick note, if you don't know how to do something and you're scared, go to ChatGPT and type in, how do I do this? And it will give you the instructions on how to do it as well as people to call to get it set up. So
Hmm.
like the tool can help you itself. But um, from our EMR, mini EMRs, it's possible to either export or get a list of patients and their schedules, like when's the last time you saw them. Obviously, don't put PHI into an AI tool. But if you take that list of scheduled appointments, diagnosis, you can create campaigns pretty quickly
Hmm.
and then have those campaigns follow your normal work set. If you have an engagement tool, utilize that engagement tool and then be able to do your success rate, A/B testing, and then be able to bring your patients back in. Second to that, there's many AI tools that are coming on the market or are on the market that help you fill up your schedule using AI. So everything from intelligent wait lists, or my favorite is the online scheduling tools that suggest the right therapist, the right time slot, and then being able to bring them in. I agree with you. The gold mine's in your patient list. Being able to understand your patients, understand your demographic, your diagnosis, and then be able to have campaigns to reach out to them and bring them back in is a huge differentiator in your revenue.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think with WebPT Reach, right, that was something that there's automation that's occurring
There is.
as far from an email basis as well as text basis to those lists of patients, you segmenting all kinds of diagnosis, and there's a lot of things that you can do with that tool.
Reach is a real differentiator, I think, for us in our practice. I don't think anybody on the market is doing it quite the same well. So I appreciate you giving us a little bit of advertisement. It is an AI forward tool. It's super cool.
Yeah, yeah, I've worked with it, and actually we have like an integration from our websites that goes into the WebPT Reach Lead tool, so that's been pretty cool to see how that works, and I think it's fantastic because one thing I think to have a great experience into the future for a patient is if they feel like, I mean, imagine if your doctor sent you an email like, "Hey, just checking in, how you doing?" Right? Like, wow, that
Mhm.
must be a fantastic doctor, right? Well, then we should be doing the same thing in like PT,
We
right? And
should be
that's
doing
where I
it.
think Reach really comes in place. Like you get this kind of personal feel of an email, like, "Hey, checking in with you, how you doing? How's your back feeling?" Right?
Right. Yeah.
So there's a lot of capabilities with that.
And it's not insincere. I think some of the feedback I hear is, well, I don't want AI handling that because I want a human to do that. Um, as a consumer, and for everybody who's listening, I'm in my 40s, so I'm not a brand new consumer. I really just want the email to show up, and if I respond to it, I want somebody to respond back. If they're using technology to scale that, awesome. I use
Mhm.
technology to scale my life too. Um, Even being able to message my physician, my PT, OT, whoever it is, and have it, chime back and say, "Hey, try these three exercises or do this with your home exercise program." That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
I don't need to know that Neil answered at 2 o'clock in the morning, stared at his screen for an hour, got out a book, and sent me an exercise.
Yeah, and I've seen like what's very interesting to me is healthcare tends to be behind compared to other industries in adoption, right? And so
Right.
if we look at like the restaurant industry, I mean, everything's toast and all these different, like heck, I went to a restaurant the other night and now I have to tip through the kiosk on the table. Right? I don't even have to like write on the receipt for the server anymore. It's just like right there on the kiosk. And I was like, okay, well, this is new. So the adaptation in like the restaurant industry is fast paced, right? And so yes, we've got tons more regulations and rules we have to jump through on the healthcare side, but we're slowly starting to catch up with online bookings and things like that. We're still not where we need to be by any means. And I think there's a lot of ways that as a practice owner, we can be forward thinking, okay, what tools and solutions are out there where I want to make it as easy as possible for people to schedule with me when they know their schedule, right? And that's going to help me fill my book.
Right. And it's little things like patient preference too. So these, the AI, especially the agents, in a conversation, an email link, whatever it is, you can say, hey, I prefer to see my therapist at this time in the morning and I can't do it on Tuesdays, Thursdays. So you can have a pretty complicated conversation with the AI. And
Mm-hmm.
then it'll go find those slots and it will offer it back for them, right? And so
Yeah.
these conversations that would take 30 minutes for a front desk person still can take 30 minutes. But now you're not blocking your phones and it's infinite scale, right? So
Yeah.
whoever calls in, there's no more missed numbers.
Yeah. That's really cool. And so, you're on the forefront of AI here. You're obviously coming up with new tools. You're also working with a lot of tools that you have built already. What are there any like common mistakes that you see PTs or practice owners making when they're trying to implement this stuff?
So the number one that I would remind everybody is just because you have ChatGPT on your computer, it doesn't make it HIPAA compliant. Be very thoughtful about the tools that you're using when it comes to patient information. You know, there are some of these chatbots that therapists want to use. They are HIPAA compliant. You usually have to use an enterprise membership so that there's a business associate agreement, a BAA in place that protects and does the HIPAA necessary.
Mm-hmm.
If you are buying a tool, scribe tool, something like that, just ask them about their HIPAA compliance, right? It's a checkbox. The regulations are pretty specific that it's on each provider to make that assurance. So be sure you're doing it. The second one is don't fall for the hype. And I am an AI hype person. I will talk about it all day long if you can't feel my enthusiasm. But don't fall for the hype.
Yeah.
Do a proof of concept. Don't just go ahead and buy 30 licenses and give everybody in your company a tool for 100 grand. Like set it up, do 5 people, understand the problem that you're solving, then ruthlessly solve that problem. And if it's not solving the problem, discard the tool. There's
Mm-hmm.
many to go through now. And then the last one is everybody has to remember that the iron triangle of healthcare, access, quality, and cost exists in AI tool. You can get a free AI tool that may not be high quality. You can get a very expensive one that may have access requirements. So, be thoughtful about how this is going to fit your business. Don't go out of business because you're buying a lot of cool tools to try and stay in business,
Mm-hmm.
right? Have a problem and solve it.
I love that. Yeah. And we've only got certain bandwidth too as business owners, right? A lot
Absolutely.
of us, would be treating patients plus trying to run the practice and handle all the day-to-day in there too. And then, if you have these layers of tech stack that you just keep putting on and on and on, you're trying to figure out something. It takes time, right? It takes time. And are you spending that time wisely? So I love how okay, let me look at what's out there. How could it help me solve this problem in the clinic, right? How can I make things for this particular process in the clinic better? I think that's the ideal way that you're talking about going at it instead of just saying, oh, that's a shiny object, let me buy it, right?
Well, if through the magic of process training, and maybe your therapist, maybe you have a very specific payer that you work with, if you don't have a claims denial problem due to electronic benefits verification and prior auth, you probably shouldn't buy a tool that handles that for you. Right. But if it turns out that you're at 25% and you have staff turnover, maybe there's something going on at the front desk, the payers are switching roles, it's probably the right thing to invest in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say too, if you're, if you have a high cancellation rate in the clinic, if you're 15% cancellation rate, okay, what can I do here using AI, right, to make this much more efficient, right? Where are people dropping off, right? The follow-up is the key place to start looking there.
Yeah. Please don't triple book all your therapists just with the assumption that 2 people won't show up.
Got it. I was very curious too, like what you said there. It makes a lot of sense with, making sure that things are HIPAA compliant because we are in like a new space race, right? Like AI,
Hmm.
and if you just look on Instagram, if you just look on Google, the volume of AI companies that are launching every single day is just growing, and it they're not thinking with healthcare in mind and all the regulations and stuff that are set. And so you can get yourself into trouble because you're like, oh, this is a cool tool here, but then you don't realize it doesn't apply very well into healthcare because it's not, playing
Right.
nicely or it's not keeping PHI safe. And we see clinics make that mistake too. A lot of times with the way they might be set up on their website, they may not have the right kind of software or solutions in place, there are systems in place that do make it HIPAA compliant. And then Facebook too, like people might upload custom audiences from their patient list into Facebook, which is like Facebook is not HIPAA
Yep,
compliant, and so
that's right.
you just set yourself up for problems right there. So
Right.
that's really cool that you're bringing our attention to that because we just want to make sure that we are working with that. And I think that one of the challenges that I see in our space too is that the technology is changing so much faster than the regulation can keep pace with, right?
Yep.
And we can get ourselves into trouble, especially even in the future if we don't start thinking with that now.
That's right. And I mean, you probably know better than I. How many of our practices can afford their own data privacy lawyer just to help them
Yeah.
hourly, right? Um, so just another piece of advice as you're thinking about AI scribes or anybody is thinking about using AI, um, as you're reading through the agreement, make sure that it specifies that the patient data belongs to your organization.
Mhm.
They're not going to sell it, commercialize it, run it on a server in Russia, whatever it is. Be
Right.
thoughtful about where your data is going,
Yeah.
because that data, it's important to you, it's important to your practice, and you should have a say in how it's being utilized to either
Mhm.
improve the product or maybe they're not allowed to use it to
Yeah.
improve the product. But that's ultimately your choice.
That's a great point too. I mean, it comes back to what you said before, which is basically you get what you pay for, right?
That's
So
right.
if you're trying to find a cheap solution because it doesn't cost you anything, it doesn't mean that it's going to be safe, right? And
That's
so
right.
making sure that you're working with, reputable company or companies that have this kind of innovation that are looking into these things. Like I know, like WebPT, like you said, data privacy lawyers and stuff that are looking into this. You can feel more assured that you're doing the right thing, right? And that there's going to be even better innovation for it in the future.
Right. And earlier you said, our therapists don't, for the most part, want to be administrative and worry about billing and denials, et cetera. I was on the other side where I was overly enthusiastic about the data security, privacy, how does it work? So be careful. You could end up leading product in an EMR if that's the way that you practice today.
Got it. And so just kind of wrapping up here, it's hard to keep pace with just how fast this component of our life is changing with AI. I think the public is getting very used to it, so they're expecting more of that in business as they're interacting with all kinds of other businesses in the industry. What kind of other trends do you see in AI should clinic owners really be watching out for?
Well, something that is immediately useful. There are wonderful products like Notebook LM from Google that essentially act as file storages. So you can stick in different types of documents, videos, et cetera, like that. And it creates the context when you do searching. Why does that matter? Uh, I had to do CEUs. You have to do CEUs. Everybody has to do CEUs. And, I had various notebooks and volumes sitting around my house. Now I just take all those PDFs, I stick it in Notebook LM, and then later I can go back and it's like having a chatbot that is highly sensitive to just one field of understanding.
Mhm.
So stick your CEUs in there if you have a specialty, if you're thinking about doing a specialty, if you're doing training lectures. It's a great way to up level your ability to get through your day to day. And if it turns out that you can share that those notebooks with your enterprise.
Mhm.
So as you have new grads come in, if you want a place to keep your documentation, policy, procedures, etc., it lets people have an interface where they can type in and ask questions and then get the answers back on policy, procedures, education, continuing ed. It's a super powerful tool. Yet again, it's like $20 a month.
Mhm.
That would be one of the ones I point out and say everybody should be doing this.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that goes along with what I've seen, and we've been doing this a lot within our business too, is where you're building GPTs, for example, to help you in other parts of your business, right? So financial analysis. You can, put your P&Ls and everything up into ChatGPT and then say, hey, build me an advisory board of Warren Buffett and all these other key people. How would they look at this, right? And advise me on where I could improve my profitability in my P&Ls. Like, that's something you can do within ChatGPT.
That's awesome. Yeah, 20 years ago, we were building dashboards, and I would have a conversation and be like, hey, Neil, look at my product. I have all these dashboards. There's 631 tabs that you get to click through to run your business. And nobody wants to do that now, right? They want to land on a page and it says, the number one problem you have is this. And to remediate the issue, do these 3 things. So your problem solving with Mr. Buffett on your board is a great idea.
Yeah. So, and you can do that for lots of parts of your business. So, again, we actually have a Neil GPT. So basically fed everything that I've said over the years in documents, and it spits out everything just like I would say, right? And so you can build those kind of things for your practice. You can have a marketing advisor. You can say, hey, build me an advisory board of Alex Hormozy and Seth Godin and all these kind of people, right? And how should I approach this event happening in my area, right? So you can do things that aren't that complex. And I think if you kind of think about it, okay, I can actually have AI think like professionals that I know, or people, or expert in the industry, and then how can I use that? So I would say, yes, we can definitely look at it from the clinical aspect, the billing, documentation side of it, but also use it within your business to do the business side of things, from marketing and finance, right? Operations, administration. That was fantastic what you said about policies and procedures. It just makes it so much easier for people to think about policies and procedures in there too.
Perfect. Yeah. And I think, you're becoming a fantastic prompt engineer. Your ability to talk to an AI, I really think this is going to be a differential in the next 10 years. AI is like you hired the world's smartest person who's just naive to everything, right? And so if you can say you are the SVP of product for a world-class outpatient therapy EMR, and you're solving these 3 problems, and you have this resource, and then it brings you back options. It's incredible. I'm very public. I use AI in probably every facet of my life now, and I can't see ever going back.
That's awesome. Rob, thank you so much for being on the podcast with us. What's a great way for people to learn about what WebPT is doing in AI?
Well, one, come find us on LinkedIn. We have hundreds and hundreds of different articles that lead to education content. Our Ascend, where we have talked about AI 2 or 3 times, practice management, how to maximize your revenue. Come find us on our website and our blogs. We have wonderful speakers such as Neil and other industry leads who can break down different parts of the business that, one, overlap with technology, or maybe it's just how to squeeze more dollar out of your Medicare revenue. But we're here to help your practice holistically.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Rob, again. Appreciate that. So Rob Helton here, our Senior Vice President of Product at WebPT. Thank you so much for being on the podcast with us and sharing the exciting innovations in AI that's occurring in PT and rehabilitation clinics. So again, thank you for sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you, Neil.
Awesome. And so to all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us on the Practice Marketing Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast channel now, over 10,000 views. So super excited about that. And then don't forget to also follow us on our YouTube channel, where you get tons of free advice and also the video of our podcast that we're doing here. And then also at practicepromotions.net, we've got tons of downloads and free marketing tips for you on there too. So this is Neil Triggett from the Practice Marketing Podcast, wishing you much success in your practice.
A free way for you to support our show is by leaving a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It's a chance for you to tell us what you love about the show, and it helps others discover it as well. Just scroll down to ratings and review on your phone and click write a review. Thanks.